As you may or may not know, I quite like Halo. It's a wonderful setting that I really wish hadn't gone the way of Star Wars, because as it turns out, most franchises aren't Warhammer, where the fanbase is simply willing to accept being upset 80% of the time for one reason or another. Halo 5 shot it in the head, and we've all been watching its corpse bleed out on the floor, wondering if those twitches are a sign it still lives or just the death throes. But all is not completely lost, viewer. As it turns out, any fellow fan of Halo just has to do the last thing you'd expect from a franchise to get enjoyment out of it. Look away from the video games. No, I don't mean the TV show. Anyone who tells you to watch that is not your friend and should be put on a watch list. I mean the topic of today's video, Halo Flashpoint. Though ground command and fleet battles are a thing of the past, Halo Flashpoint has risen up in their place to not replace them, but fill a new niche in the tabletop field, where small groups of Spartans, elites, and more rush into combat to see who will reign supreme in the field of battle, pushing themselves to their limits, be it for the UNSC, Sing Helios, or even the Banished. Mankind's finest may duel with each other or go head-to-head with the alien threat that nearly ended them in the Human Covenant War. So tell me, viewer, are you a longtime Halo fan upset that Halo's been in a bad spot forever? Do you want to recreate some of the good old days of team deathmatch in tabletop format? Do you just want really cool minis of Spartans? Well then, step on up and take a look at Halo Flashpoint. But before I begin, might you be feeling a bit peckish? If so, allow me to introduce you to Factor, the sponsor of this video. Factor is the meal delivery service that sends chef-crafted and dietitian-approved meals straight to your front door. With these bad boys, there's no prep, no cleanup, no planning to be done. Throw it in the microwave for 2 minutes and bam, you've got a fine meal waiting and ready to be devoured. There's no effort required, so you can spend more time enjoying the summer, and they're perfectly suited to making sure you eat healthily. 2 veggies in every meal, balanced macros, only real ingredients, and more means that you're getting good eats. 97% of people that have them say it helps them eat healthier, and 92% of people say it's made their life less stressful in general, so you know that they're getting some good feedback on these. I eat them when I'm busy doing other things, sure enough. Be it pounding out some writing or getting ready for a trip, Factor helps me get the food I need without sucking hours of my day into preparing it. And to get yourself in on these lovely meals, look no further. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code PancreasFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code PancreasFB50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. PancreasFB50 at Factor75.com. People gotta eat, so why not get yourself some Factor to ensure you're eating only the best. Now then, time to lead you all to heaven when you die. Halo Flashpoint, as far as the time period of when it takes place goes, is set in the aftermath of the Human Covenant War. The Spartan 4s are alive and kicking, the UNSC is still facing threats, and the war game simulation has been set up to ensure mankind's greatest warriors have the best training possible for the galaxy they live in. If you weren't aware, yeah, the multiplayer for the newer Halo games is canon, so every time you sit there teabagging someone you killed for 10 seconds straight, it's a canon event in the Halo universe. Sure enough, in Flashpoint, the rules pamphlet they give you mentions how war games gives the Spartans the best training, money, and unethical research into child soldiers can buy, preparing them for everything they may face, including, of course, other Spartans. It's a dangerous galaxy out there even after the Human Covenant War. The various aliens have varying degrees of relations with humanity, ranging from willing to ally to wanting to give this whole genocidal war thing another crack. It's hard to like the UNSC is going to let their best soldiers go into battle without testing or training. And as it turns out, there's not much better training than the kind that lets you see if you made a mistake or not by getting your head blown off. I gotta imagine there's plenty of making fun of Spartans who do poorly in war games in the mess hall afterwards. Add into the fact that there's still plenty of foreigner sites waiting to be discovered, and God only knows what horrors are in there, means that war games is the go-to for letting a Spartan test themselves as much as possible without having to drop into a flood containment area. Of course, this being the complete setting has become somewhat untrue recently, albeit in a way I don't think anyone will complain about. One of the more recent releases for the game is ODSTs. Lesser than Spartans, but still willing to throw down with the best of them, I believe it's still perfectly possible for them to participate in war games. Rather less easy to explain being in war games are Singhili mercenaries being given access to them, because even though the Arbiter is pretty goddamn cool, I don't think Oni would let us split lip within 1,000 miles of their advanced equipment like that if it could be helped. Even less likely to be allowed in are the Banished, because those are the enemy and that's that. The monkeys that want to rip you in half probably aren't being invited for the Spartan equivalent of game night. And least likely of all, because it's physically impossible, is Noble Team, because they are dead. But they're here in Flashpoint now, and you know what? I don't give a damn if it doesn't make sense for war games. We out here recreating the Human Covenant War, and I'm glad for it. Grab yourself some troops of whatever kind you can and start throwing down, because the UNSC is ready to fight, be it in the most advanced training environments imaginable or the desolate hellscape of a world about to be glassed. As far as general background stuff goes, I think that'll suffice, because let's be honest here, viewer, it's Halo. More can be discussed in the pros and cons of this game, and perhaps more honestly, I'm making assumptions here. I'm making the assumption that of my audience of 95% men who are almost all in the age range of 18 to 44 years old, you have likely played Halo. And the assumption that if you're watching a video about the Halo tabletop skirmish game, you're at least passingly familiar with Halo, or at the very least, you know who Master Chief is. If my assumptions are making an ass out of primarily me, then my apologies. But to save ourselves some time and not try and explain 20 years of lore for a skirmish game, let's just jump into the pros and cons now, shall we? Boy howdy, how does someone who likes Halo as much as me tell you the positives of a Halo game without being biased? The answer is I don't. So for this segment, put on the Diary of Jane in another tab and get ready for someone who's blinded by nostalgia to tell you why Halo is cool. First off is that you can recreate Halo multiplayer games you had as a kid with your friends, even those silly stupid friends who never played Halo because they're wrong and have bad taste. By default, you can grab yourself a 2v2 or a 4v4 of unique Spartans going head-to-head in the field of battle, ready to bring you to victory. Jump into the game and prove to the other player that only the strongest will survive, because Halo may now be peaking in the realm of tabletop, but by God is it still fun to fire the spanker at some asshole who didn't realize you had line of sight on him. But you know what else this means you can do? If you're confident in your victory, you look your opponent dead in the eyes, blast Breaking Benjamin on speaker, and start beating the snot out of him. If you start losing, that's no worries, you just switch it to failure instead and bury the sunlight alongside all your dead Spartans. Not every battle's a winning one, and if you're a fan of Halo, I'm sure you knew that already. God knows the UNSC wasn't winning much throughout the war, and if losing means you spent an hour making the tabletop version of an AMV with a buddy, I say that's time that's anything but wasted. On that note, and to get a bit more serious though, with the new models coming out, you can pretty handily create battles from the Human Covenant War if you want. Initially, yeah, it was just Spartans v Spartans, with the exception of a few elites thrown into the advanced edition of the game. A welcome sight, as I am and always will be a proud elite preferred species, and if that's a problem, you can take your ass back to the stained glass window that is Reach, but it was very much the vibes of a War Games training exercise still. Now though, the Banished are here, and those bastards aren't coming to play nice. While you could still call that a simulation, it also lets you play through some battles that'd be happening in modern Halo lore pretty well, if you take the respawns as instead further Spartans coming onto the field to replace fallen ones. And then they kept releasing things. Now you can recreate training exercises between the Spartans and the ODSTs, proving which side is best between the Ultimate Super Soldiers and the Helljumpers. Soon enough, you'll be able to outright recreate skirmishes set during the Human Covenant War. For those of you bastards lucky enough to grab the Noble Team box at Adepticon, of which I wasn't and I'm still angry over, they're now out and presumably will be available more commonly in the future. Which means now you can definitively prove that Noble 6 is in fact alive in a cave after he soloed all the elites that came after him in the final cutscene of Reach. And coming up later this year, as of time of recording, is this blurred image at the edge. Now the Spartan killers are cool, more elites is something I'm always happy with. But while I'm pretty sure that purple fella on the right is just another elite, I can also see what's clearly a Marine and a Grunt. If that holds true, soon enough we'll have the basic infantry of both sides of the conflict able to go at each other as well, letting you recreate the ground battles that no doubt took place across countless human planets during the war. Ever since ground command went down, this wasn't officially an option anymore, but with Halo Flashpoint, soon enough that'll be back, if at a reduced scale. And of course, it must be said that Halo Flashpoint has the, as of now, unparalleled feature for both lore and tabletop, which I will be coming back to later. You can deploy the Master Chief to the field of battle. In what other war game or skirmish game or whatever you want to call it can you do that? None. The answer to the best of my knowledge is none. But here, you can. Here you can recreate battles with the Master Chief himself, because he is the one that'll save us all and you can prove it yourself now. You can't even do that in actual Halo multiplayer, but here you can. That kicks ass, I'm sorry, that's all there is to say. You can get creative with stuff too, because as long as the game board is a 2-foot by 2-foot surface, put whatever terrain you want on it. Get yourself a purple game mat and some handmade Covenant looking stuff and presto, now you're invading a Covenant supercarrier. The possibilities for the lore of your game are endless. The good kind of endless, not whatever the hell the endless and infinite are supposed to be. Let's be honest too, because I'm willing to bet I know my audience. You almost certainly, to some extent, like making your own homebrew lore for your armies. And if, like me, you came from Halo, you've at least once done that with an armor customization you liked in Halo, creating all sorts of stories for your multiplayer Spartan or Elite. Well now, you can do that with miniatures. They all come unpainted, this isn't a board game, so you can go nuts. Get creative with it too, since there's no pre-programmed system to worry about for your armor paint. Paint checkerboards and stripes and all sorts of stuff you want on your Spartan OCs. The sky isn't even the limit, because when the slip space ruptures start being detected, the Spartans are going to the stars. Alternatively, just recreate the cast of Red vs. Blue. If you roll poorly enough on hitting people, you could even have lore-accurate Church on your team. I'd advise against a caboose, though, for obvious reasons. Although, to be honest, I'd advise against having any blue team minis, because in this household we don't support no dirty blues. Hey there, viewer. Do you like me? I hope so. You're watching my channel. Want to see a cool video you can find me in though? Look here. I'm in it. But more importantly, it's a good video that has people more intelligent than a brick involved in making it. You can tell because Tex only had me say a few lines at the end before I could be my usual self. Go watch it now. I'm not giving you a choice. Watch it, or I will drive a Hetzer through your front door, and no, I don't care if you live on the 10th floor of an apartment complex or something. I'm a Hetzer driver. I'll find a goddamn way. A fairly short lore positive section, especially given I am me and view Halo with more positive feelings than my actual family, but that's because a lot of the pros I have more closely relate to the tabletop and can be better explained here. So first off though, how's this game work? Well, to reiterate what was said earlier, it in many ways plays closely to what actual Halo multiplayer matches feel like. An impressive feat given that this is a tabletop game and Halo's an FPS. Here's a data card for a character, in this case none other than Edward Buck. He's also playable, by the way. SP is how many squares you can move, with the lower number being for a short action to move and the higher one being the long action for sprinting. You can take 2 short actions or 1 long action to turn, by the way, so keep that in mind. RA is what you need to roll to hit a ranged attack, and FI is for melee. SV is what you roll to save against incoming damage, AR is of course armor, HP is health, simple stuff. For weapons, RA is how many squares away you can shoot at something with it, and AP is of course armor piercing. The rest of the keywords I won't get too into unless I find them significant enough for a point, and for basics, that's how each unit works. Now, how does this feel like Halo? Well, you can move into a square as a short action, pick up a gun, and then immediately start firing it like you do in Halo. You can batter down their energy shields and with some luck, score a headshot on the dice rolls and brutalize them before they can react. Then their teammate comes screaming from around the corner with an energy sword, and you get to feel the fear of God that all Halo players do when they realize they are now the rebels in the hallway and their opponent is Darth Vader. It's very fast-paced because of the limited actions each model gets before their activation is up, and because of alternating actions, meaning you don't use your entire team in one turn, then your opponent does, and on and on and on. You may go first, but then your opponent takes one of their model's turns, and on until every model is gone and the game turn is over. After that, weapons respawn randomly based on dice rolls on the map, just like in Halo. Usually the weapons spawn face down so you don't know what it is, but the potential to pick up a Spartan laser or some such weapon means the same rush for power weapons in the video game exists here as well. Mantic Games has genuinely done a phenomenal job at turning Halo into a skirmish game, and for once I'm not just being biased. I didn't play Flashpoint until fairly recently because I always figured that if I wanted to play a 4v4 game of Halo, I'd just load up Halo. I'm glad to say that's not the case, and before I go on further, let me assure you that Flashpoint is genuinely great fun and still feels like Halo multiplayer, just in a different format. Right then, on we go. For some more general positives, Halo Flashpoint is a pretty forgiving game, at least overall. By default, you're deploying Spartans to the field. Those aren't pushovers, even if you're an old fan who complains every time a 4 is on screen. They're the UNSC's best, and so you can expect them to take some heavy hits and keep on going. Lethality is of course part of the game, but even relatively weaker units can reasonably expect to keep going for at least a round of fire aimed at them if they're properly positioned. For instance, some weapons have armor piercing. This isn't like Warhammer though, where this makes it easier to wound them because of how armor works. Armor is essentially a health pool that replenishes every attack, so if a model has 3 health and 2 armor, you need 5 successful hits on them. If someone else shoots them later, they too have to get through the armor even if you had just taken 2 damage. Armor piercing lowers how much armor you need to chew through by whatever number of AP the weapon has, but chances are it won't completely ignore it either. You're able to tank a good amount of hits, which helps encourage risky and aggressive plays knowing that you aren't going to keel over the moment you step out of cover. Combine that with energy shields that regenerate, and you can sometimes afford to rush up mid to force the enemy to look at one guy while also not having the poor guy that did it be solely a sacrifice. Of course, that's not to say there's no risk or that the game can be a slog because of the high health. Cover, positioning, and of course utilizing some amount of teamwork and synergy between your soldiers is a must, also giving this game a large amount of depth incidentally. Pro tip, don't be caught out in the open. If you get shot like that, your opponent gets extra dice to hurt you with, and those can stack up quickly. Everything in this game for the most part is done with D8 rolls, and headshots are done by rolling an 8 or in some circumstances a 7. Headshots count as a successful hit and let you roll another dice on top of it, which can also generate headshots, meaning it's entirely possible for some asshole with a sniper rifle to turn a corridor into a death trap laden with bodies as they fall in line one at a time. The lethal keyword, meanwhile, means that once armor and shields are done away with, you deal an extra point of damage on that attack. Command dice enter the equation too, specially marked dice that allow your units to do more than they otherwise could. That asshole with the sniper? He can fire again with these things, or you can outright give someone an entire extra activation. Once you get the hang of the game, it's fast-paced but with large amounts of depth, which, to repeat myself in the happiest way possible, makes it so much like Halo itself. Items appear in the field ranging from heals to energy shields, giving you even more options for how to play the game. Some weapons and items like the rocket launcher are aimed at squares rather than targets, and yes, you can in fact embrace your inner caboose and friendly fire your team to death with it. After a few games, this is a fast-paced, brutal game where your characters can take a hit but can still go down if you play them foolishly. It's a lovely balance between lethality, but also encouraging creative maneuvers, climbing across terrain, and using every feature to your advantage. You can slam people into a wall to kill them with the right weapon. Doesn't happen often, but death by wall is an entirely valid way to eliminate the enemy. To expand on the fast-paced part as well, depending on how familiar you are with the game and what game mode you're playing and what size of game, you can finish a match in half an hour, no problem. You can have larger games with higher point limits to win, of course, if you want the hours-long Halo board game day, but you can also crank out a match of Flashpoint in no time at all once the ball gets rolling. Nice to see, because sometimes I don't want to spend my entire afternoon playing a war game. There's a lot of variety between all the different Spartans and other models available to you as well. Even between Spartans with the same name, a different weapon they start with can be a pretty substantial difference in their use cases. The difference between starting with a bulldog shotgun and an energy sword, for instance, is pretty extreme, with one encouraging equal parts range and melee and one demanding you rush in and start the stabbing. Some Spartans are pure combat, while others, such as the Mark 7, are tacticians that give you an extra command dice and let you re-roll one or two of them, depending on the number. Elites, meanwhile, have less health than Spartans, but more energy shields, which regenerate one at a time every turn if the model is still alive. Brutes from the Banished, meanwhile, tend to have a shitload of health relative to other models. ODSTs are in many ways all around just worse, but come with two key advantages of their own. One is that with the point system you can use to play the game, they're the cheapest models at present. Two is something that I'm happy to report has been implemented. Tell me, how do ODSTs arrive to the field of battle?
Troopers, we are green and very, very mean!
You bet your ass that with some of the additional game modes, ODSTs can be an absolute menace, because these mad lads can drop right on top of an objective and immediately force the enemy to come to them. Doesn't much matter if you've got less health and no shields if you immediately camp the objective and start taking pot shots at every idiot running at you with an energy sword. There's another Halo staple right there, doming the overconfident asshole who thinks a power weapon makes him a god. You even have Bullfrog ODSTs. That's the coolest shit. On that note, there's plenty of game modes to play as well. Of course, there's Slayer, the classic kill the other guy more than he kills you game mode, but there's also Oddball, Capture the Flag, Stronghold, and even more scenarios that came with the Banished and ODST releases. There's plenty of ways to play this game, all of which are good fun. The random weapon drops make it fun each time. You can change the map to your liking each time as well, since terrain's an important feature of the game. Getting the sniper early, depending on the map configuration, can be the key to winning the game, or alternatively, a loss can be forced on you because the weapon spawns failed you, and your opponent meanwhile got said sniper rifle. And of course, I can't forget the most important thing. You can play as part of your team the Master Chief. One day I'll make a video on his rules and more, but do you have an inkling of how good he is? If you use points, he's the most expensive model in the game. If you're using the original, each person takes 4 Spartans way of playing, he's worth 2 Spartans, because he is the Master fucking Chief. There's a reason he starts with an energy sword instead of something more fitting like an assault rifle, and that's because if he started the game with a gun, he'd be unstoppable. His special rule is that with the right combination of command dice, his turn just doesn't end. And if you take him in your team, you get 3 extra command dice on top of the 2 you always get, and he lets you re-roll 3 of those 5. He has come to finish the fight, and finish the fight he will. I can't wait for them to introduce grunts finally, because then we can get the Halo campaign experience too, i.e. John Halo running up to every single one of these fart-breathing runts and punting them into the atmosphere. I am biased, I'm 12 years old, and I think after this script I'm gonna make another AMV. You can't stop me. For a bit on the variety again, there are massive amounts of weapons in the game, which in some ways actually makes me kinda sad. The focus rifle from Reach is in this game. That was the only game it appeared in, but Halo Flashpoint has brought it back. I can't play any of these weapons in modern Halo, but I can in the board game version. In Flashpoint, it's probably my favorite weapon, because I've absolutely melted Spartans with that thing. The battle rifle, meanwhile, continues to be the battle rifle, the most reliable weapon ever conceived in a video game, capable of braining people with a bit of skill and luck almost every time. They all have vastly different roles and stats, but at the same time, they reflect their purpose from the games wonderfully. Honest to God, 10 out of 10 game design on these alone. They're all so good. And let's be honest here, who doesn't want to blast someone to hell with a Spartan laser? That's fun virtually or physically. And lastly, the models are all good. They're nicely detailed, the poses are good, they look like the miniatures of Spartans that they should. If you're trying to do something like use them as proxies for something like 40k, you might be disappointed because they're not scaled correctly for that, but honestly that's such a non-complaint I'm only mentioning it because I'm sure someone will have the idea. Shame it doesn't work, but oh well. Most of them are monopose as well, which could annoy some, but I don't mind with one exception I'll talk about later. As a skirmish game, you aren't supposed to have entire legions of the same unit. You've got one of each fella, and they don't need to be that dynamically posable like action figures. They serve their purpose of looking distinct, and they look good doing it. I'm content. And come on again, paintable Master Chief. No, I'm not getting over this, it's the Master Chief. You might as well tell me to get over breathing, or insulin prices. Now this is going to be a short section, and our first one that immediately might be made irrelevant later on. At the moment, there's not quite enough potential for battles in the Human Covenant War. We all want that, and while the Grunts and Marines are coming down the line, at present they aren't here yet. Even then, the Covenant is an alliance of several different alien races. We've got Brutes and Elites so far, but while I won't say they fill the exact same role, it's fairly close to each other. Grunts, meanwhile, will be the cheap unit to complement their equivalent to the Marines, but eventually seeing Hunters, Jackals, and maybe even something like Engineers or Drones would be awesome. Until that happens, though, your plans of recreating a mini version of Halo Wars will have to be put on hold. This is technically a gameplay con too, I suppose, but the game's good enough that their absence isn't felt mechanically nearly as much as it's felt by me wanting to collect and paint Grunts and Hunters for fun narrative matches. In fact, once again, all the cons I have can more effectively be put into the gameplay side of things. This is both because I think it fits better for the points I have to make, and because pointing out flaws in Halo's lore physically hurts. So there's the shortest con section I've ever made. Moving on. Since this is a game, I can actually criticize things, though. If you think I can't, you clearly don't know Halo fans, because we've been criticizing the games for quite a bit now. First off, there is a little clunkiness in the game. Not a lot, and by no means enough to bring things to a halt, but every now and again, something will come out that throws you for a loop or just makes it awkward to play. For starters, there's a million different keywords in this game. Some are obvious. If you need someone to tell you what one use means, you are probably not the target audience of a tabletop game, or have yet to leave kindergarten. But there's so many of them that early into getting into the game, remembering all of them is a hassle. How exactly they interact with each other and the general rules can be tricky to get a hang of, especially because the random weapon drops means that depending on the units you play, you might not frequently come into contact with a lot of these keywords in your typical game. It brings things to a halt, especially because the keyword explanations are all in the rules pamphlet. It's very nice that the rules can be explained in a single pamphlet. I'm unbelievably thankful I don't need to pore over an entire codex for it, but you better get used to having it open to the keywords page when you start. Some weapons have 4 keywords on them. Until you've got a good amount of games under your belt, you aren't understanding any of that nonsense off the top of your head. None of the keyword explanations are on the flashcards of weapons or models either, which would admittedly be hard to fit, but again, it's more reasons you'll be reopening the core rules over and over again mid-game early on. There's also the occasional hurdle that comes into play through gameplay itself. The long keyword is the most obvious one to me, and not just because it's another keyword to remember. A weapon with that keyword means that in order to fire it, you need to take a long action. Remember, you can only take 2 short actions or a long one, so if you move, you don't get to fire your gun. From experience, I've tried using long weapons in a few games only to be met with repeatedly being denied their use because everyone ran away from me. This is in some ways a positive because it gives the game depth. After all, you need proper positioning with these weapons, but sometimes you'll get frustrated with the weapons you got and being unable to use them effectively, if at all. There's no destructible terrain to my knowledge either. Not exactly uncommon in a tabletop game, but it does mean that despite having a rocket launcher, that wall is getting in the way, but it's not about to break. The survivability of the units in the game does also mean that sometimes you just get a dead turn. More keywords can speed some things up. ESD in a weapon means that if you get a hit, you just delete that many energy shields before anything else. So a weapon with ESD 2, even if it doesn't wound, just takes off 2 of an opponent's energy shields off rip. Sometimes, you don't have ESD, you don't have great lines of sight for extra dice, and your opponent doesn't have these things either. So your character takes a turn shooting and does nothing, and then your opponent's character takes a turn shooting and doing nothing. You both also lack AP, so you just feel vaguely impotent. Which, hey, we've all been there in the Halo games too, I'm sure, where you and your opponent accidentally get in a competition to see who can whiff the most shots. But it's a bit more frustrating in a tabletop game than it is in a video game. This usually resolves itself quickly as other units from each team start flanking or even just backing the other guy up for more firepower, but sometimes a turn goes by where you and the enemy each chip off a single energy shield that regenerates next turn anyways, and nothing else, and you're gonna feel silly. A more lukewarm and obvious negative, but still something to consider, is that Flashpoint is not a war game. It's a skirmish game, so if you want the Warhammer-style massive battles, it won't really provide. Theoretically, there's nothing stopping you and your opponent from bringing 50 different models each, but that'd be a game that takes days to play with how Flashpoint works. Flashpoint is for squad-based soldiers to go at each other, not massive battles from the height of the Human Covenant War, so if you want that, you'll be left wanting. It's my understanding that Mantic Games did say they would consider creating larger games in the future with things like vehicles and more if Flashpoint sells well, and from my understanding, Flashpoint is selling well, but even if/when that does happen, Flashpoint isn't the place to go for it. It's also a shame that at present there's not nearly enough Covenant units, at least for my liking. There's only a few elites available to play. Nice to have, but god, I wish there was more. And more are coming, but still, come on, they're one of the faces of the franchise. Grunts as well, but as discussed, the options for them aren't here yet, and either way, more effort has definitely been put into the UNSC variety than the Alien variety. Which, you know, I get. Everyone wants to be the ODSTs. I want to play the ODSTs. But I really hope that either Mantic makes the choice or Microsoft gives them the option to make some proper Covenant stuff, because as much as that's what I've been saying, this is more Banished than anything. I want engineers and drones. There's not enough variety on their end yet. Compounding on this is a rather unfortunate lack of named characters. They're being pumped out more and more, don't get me wrong. Atriox, Buck and Dare, John Halo of course, and as of late, the entirety of Noble Team. These are good, but I could always use more, and once again there's a severe lack of alien characters, which is a shame. How the hell are you gonna make a Halo tabletop game and put in Atriox before the goddamn Arbiter? Where's my goddamn Keith David alien, Mantic? Even beyond that, come on, what do you mean you released the ODST box without the rookie? On that note, too, the Marines better come with Sergeant Johnson, because if they don't, I'm gonna shit an entire Halo ring's worth of bricks. It's not like Halo's lacking in named characters either, and while some extent I get it, because I'm sure Mantic doesn't want it turning into named character of the game, but I would still like more of them. Some game modes can also snowball pretty quickly, which as I've said many a time is faithful to Halo, but that tends to not work as well in a tabletop game, and be infinitely more frustrating because of how tabletop games work. When I lose an oddball because the guy holding it has the dodges of a god and his teammates are all lore-accurate Master Chief, I understand it. I'm upset, but I understand why the score was 100-2. When I lose oddball in Halo Flashpoint because I flubbed all my dice rolls, that's less fun. I feel less like I was outmatched and more like the dice bent me over like the Covenant did most of humanity. A minor complaint all things considered, just a warning that this game is more complex than Halo games proper in some ways. You won't be able to rely on simply getting good with your shots, because dice rolls are a fickle bitch sometimes. As for the models themselves, I do have one criticism. Halo was legendary, god I'm clever, for its armor customization. 3 started the train, and by god I still claim that Halo Reach had the best cosmetic system ever made in a video game. In Flashpoint, the models all look great, but I should expand on what I said when I called them monopose. They're all one piece. There's no assembly here except for a few models, like Noble Team, and that's really just putting the arms on them. Now, as much as super creative builders might not like this, I can appreciate it for the most part. Like I said, each model's representing a specific kind of character, and you'll almost certainly only have one of them on your team. In terms of being able to tell which Spartan or even Brood or Sangheli is which, it's not a hindrance in the slightest. But it would be nice if at least the heads were customizable and came with different options. For one, I, and I'm sure plenty of other people, want to make my own personal Spartan armor config from the games, and the heads are the easiest way to make them distinct. For 2, I just want to recreate Red Team. I want these morons on the field of battle complaining about how much they hate doing actual work, and I can't do that right now, and that makes me depressed. It makes me wonder why we're here. For the second to last flaw, where Flood? Where are they, Mantic? Where the hell's the Flood? There's no way those things wouldn't sell like discount heroin. Can you imagine how unbelievably fun it'd be to assemble a team of combat forms and pure forms? It's not even something that'd break the vibe they're going for. War games can absolutely simulate a Flood invasion because the UNSC is understandably terrified of what that would look like again, and with the Banished everywhere, being in war games is no longer a necessity. It feels like such a missed opportunity, and perhaps more than anything else I've said in a video, I hope this complaint ages poorly, because if it does, I get to throw Flood at people in a Halo tabletop game, which would be unbelievably peak, let me tell you. Unless Tabletop Con is something that I must prepare you for. Most people, as it turns out, do not like it when you play nothing but Breaking Benjamin for the entire time you're playing a game. As it turns out, when you put on the Diary of Jane for the 6th time and ask them, do you like that? Do you like that? The answer is no. I know, some people just don't have good taste. But it is something you'll have to come to terms with. Is this a flaw with the game? No, but it is a flaw with humanity, and because this is a 2-player game, you'll inevitably be forced to face this issue at some point. And that was a look at Halo Flashpoint. Damn good game, and as I said earlier, it isn't just my bias towards Halo speaking. This game is genuinely fun, and this is coming from someone who doubted it would be, because why wouldn't I just play normal Halo? As it turns out, the answer is because Flashpoint kicks ass. The video games may be struggling the past few years, but Mantic has apparently rolled up their sleeves to show everyone that much like Spartans, Halo never dies. Thank you as always to my wonderful channel members. You are the kidnapped children to my Spartan program, ensuring my survival in the grim war against aliens ahead. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching and take care out there. I don't actually have a joke for the end of the video. I just wanted to ask, does anyone remember Arby and the Chief? That was some classic old YouTube right there, and that it was unbelievably crass, pretty cringe, and god did I love that shit as a kid. I quote bits and pieces of it and a couple other old Halo machinimas almost religiously. Godspeed, Arby and the Chief. May your rafflecopter forever go swa 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 swa.